Farmer shocked, watching disabled child rescue baby covered in ants from the sewers. Rain hammered down on the slick, grimy alley just off Fifth Avenue. Lightning cracked overhead, casting long, wild shadows on the wet brick walls. Cars rushed past without a second glance, the city's noise swallowing everything. Except for one sharp, desperate cry. A tiny wail pierced through the thunder, high-pitched and raw, dragging the attention of anyone who'd listen, or might be forced to. Alexander Harper, billionaire and owner of half the skyline, was hurrying home. His expensive shoes splashed through puddles as cold wind chilled his neck. The usual silence wrapped around him like a thick fog, his mind locked tight as always. No distractions, no feelings, just the endless echo of deadlines and empty boardrooms. But that night, something shattered the quiet. From the corner of his eye, movement flickered in the shadows, a small figure struggling against the ruthless rain. He paused. There, crouching near a twisted grate, was a small girl, petite, no more than 5, her frail body bound in a wheelchair. Her legs didn't move much, but her arms, those little arms, worked with fierce determination. Rain plastered her tangled chestnut hair across her dirt-streaked face, eyes bright and wild against the storm. Alexander's breath hitched. The sharp buzz of tens of tiny legs caused his gaze to snap lower. A baby, no older than a few months, lay curled and trembling in the muck just beneath the grate. Its skin was pale, covered with crawling ants, their black bodies glistening like a nightmare come alive. The baby's cries ripped through the alley, raw and gasping, soaked in grime and fear. Slowly, painfully, Lily, because he somehow knew that was her name, bent down. Her fingers, shaking but steady, moved through the swarm. Each touch was a battle. The ants bit, the cold bit, the wet suffocated. Yet she didn't flinch. She wrapped the tiny biting chaos in a rag she'd pulled from her coat, murmuring soft words like a prayer, words no one else could hear, words that filled the darkness with a strange hope. Around them, the city blurred. Passers-by stopped. Whispers buzzed like the ants themselves. Look at her. She's saving it. Who leaves a baby like that? The crowd was equal parts horror and wonder. The story unfolding like a live nightmare, tangled with a miracle. Alexander felt something stir. Something deep and foreign, a flicker of warmth in a heart he thought was stone. His hands trembled, palms slick in his coat pockets. A sudden, impossible connection pulled him toward the scene. The innocence in Lily's fierce act, the helpless cry of the child, it struck a chord so raw it nearly broke him. Somewhere deep down, behind the walls of wealth and hard-edged success, Alexander saw a reflection, a glimpse of a lost past, of love buried beneath years of walls and silence. But just as his mind, and beneath that stormy sky, an unexpected story was just beginning. Hey! Before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without notice. Just give that red button down below a quick check to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're at it, leave a powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The rain fell harder, a relentless curtain that blurred everything. Passing cars splashed water onto the crowd, but no one moved. All eyes were glued to the scene. Alexander stood frozen, heart racing, feet cemented to the pavement. Lily's fragile frame was unwavering, determination etched. Then, just as the rag wrapped around the baby was lifted, a scream sliced through the storm, sharp, terrified. A woman, frantic and wild-eyed, pushed her way through the crowd. Her face was pale, and she elbowed her way forward, with a desperation that made the hairs on Alexander's neck stand on end. "Get away from her!" she shouted, pointing a trembling finger at Lily. Gasps echoed among the onlookers. Alexander's heart dropped. Who was this woman? Fear radiated from her as she stumbled closer. "You don't understand! She can't be trusted!" What? The words escaped Alexander's lips before he could think. "She's saving the baby!" "No!" the woman screamed, shaking her head violently. "You don't know. She's not who you think. She's my daughter!" The crowd recoiled as whispers spread like wildfire. Her daughter? No way. What does she mean? Lily froze, eyes darting, first to the woman, then to the baby. Confusion and fear settled on her face like a dark cloud. The comfort she had poured into the rag wavered, uncertainty creeping into her small fingers. "Mummy!" Lily's voice quaked, trembling with emotion. "I'm helping!" But the woman rushed forward, tears streaming. "You've been taken! Just come back to me, please! They're using you!" The revelation hit like a hammer. Alexander felt the ground shift beneath him. What did she mean, using? And for what? As his eyes darted toward the gathering storm of faces, the whispers grew louder. Accusations mingled with sympathy. Is she really her daughter? What does she mean by taken? Suddenly, a bright flash of lightning illuminated the scene. The sky cracked open with thunder that felt like a heartbeat, shaking everyone to their core. The crowd went silent. This was no ordinary storm. "Lily, please!" the woman cried again, desperation wrapping around her words. "You're not safe here." But Lily shook her head. "I won't leave the baby." Her voice, steady despite the chaos, rang out clear. Before Alexander could process what was happening, the woman lunged, grabbing Lily's wheelchair in a fierce grip. A collective gasp erupted from the crowd. "Stop!" He stepped forward, something deep within him shattering against the truth. "What are you doing?" As the storm raged on, the tension between them snapped like a taut string, electric and charged. In that moment, everything shifted. The certainty of heroes and villains swirled like the rain, and Alexander was torn. What did he truly know? The sparks of hope flickered in Lily's unwavering gaze, but the tangled mess of mother and daughter threatened to drown it out. The shadows around them deepened, obscuring the truth and leaving questions hanging in the air, heavy and thick. And just like that, The baby's cries blurred into the rolling thunder, holding tight to a mystery that demanded to be unraveled. The baby's cries blended with the storm, creating a cacophony that echoed against the brick walls. Alexander felt the moment stretch like a rubber band, taut and ready to snap. Lily's eyes were wide, pleading, the determination still fighting against the terror of her mother's frantic words. But then, out of nowhere, a sudden crash shook the ground beneath their feet. Unirb, from the shadows of the alley, a figure emerged. A man, tall and imposing, stepped into the flicker of lightning, eyes dark and cold. He wore a long coat, soaked but somehow untouched by the storm. In one swift movement, he reached under his coat, pulling out a gleaming badge. "Police, back away!" he commanded, voice booming above the clamour. Whispers shuttered the tension. Is this real? Who is he? What's going on? The woman clutched at Lily's wheelchair tighter, eyes darting from the man to Alexander. Desperation etched into her features. Please, you have to believe me. They're coming for her. She doesn't belong here. The man's voice cut through the noise, urgent but steady. This area is under investigation. Everyone needs to clear out. But just as the crowd began to disperse, an officer stepped beside him, a frown on his face. Wait! What about the baby? That question hung heavy in the air. The crowd shifted nervously, caught between the chaos of the storm and their rising fear. Once more, lightning split the sky, illuminating the alley. In that flash, Alexander noticed something chilling. The man, this supposed officer, was staring directly at Lily, a look that mixed recognition with something darker. He stepped forward. "Lily," he said, the name rolling off his lips as if he'd known her forever. "You need to come with us now." Everyone froze. Eyes flew wide open, hearts thudding. The air felt electric with confusion and fear. Lily's face twisted into a mask of anguish. "No, I won't go!" She turned her gaze to Alexander, searching for something like comfort. But all he felt was the sudden weight of uncertainty. "Why?" he rasped, pushing through the rising tide of panic. "What do you want with her?" But before the man could respond, the woman shouted for attention again, her voice breaking through the tension. "You don't understand! You think she's just a little girl, but she's special!" "What do you mean?" The crowd buzzed with curiosity. "Special? How?" The woman took a shaky breath, her voice trembling. She has powers. They're using her for experiments. Please, someone help!" Gasps erupted, eyes darting between the woman and the girl in the wheelchair. Alexander felt his heart race. Was this true? "No!" Lily cried, throwing her hands up in defiance. But her position was weakening. "I'm just trying to help the baby. I won't leave." In that moment, everything shifted. The man's composure flickered, frustration mixing with a resolve that ignited a fire in his gaze. "We don't have time for this," he snapped. With a sudden movement, he grabbed Lily's wheelchair, wheels screeching against the wet pavement. And as Alexander rushed forward, everything seemed to spin out of control. Faces blurred, words tangled with the storm. A loud thud reverberated through the air, and out from the shadows stumbled another figure. A girl, older and fierce, a spark of rebellion in her eyes. "Stop!" she cried, rushing toward Lily. The scene spiraled into chaos, but that one word shattered the world around them. And in that moment, as rain poured like a curtain hiding truths, the ground shook, literally and figuratively. A truth was buried deep, waiting to be unearthed. Relationships twisted like roots under concrete. Secrets clawing to break free. The stakes had shifted, and as lightning illuminated the alley once more, a question loomed. Who was really in control here? The crowd gasped collectively, and in the eye of the storm, everything changed. The crowd gasped collectively, and in the eye of the storm, everything changed. The older girl charged forward, her eyes blazing with urgency. "Get away from her!" she shouted, pushing through the chaos, forcing the world into sharper focus. She clutched a tattered backpack tightly. When it whipped against her side, something heavy rattled inside. The man in the coat narrowed his eyes, assessing the new threat. "Who are you?" he barked, but she didn't flinch. "Lily, please listen to me. We don't have time." The urgency in her voice cranked the tension up another notch. Lightning cracked again, its light illuminating the alley for a heartbeat, revealing the fear dancing in everyone's eyes. But just as Lily opened her mouth to respond, a deafening roar shattered the rain-soaked air. A sickening tremor shuddered through the ground. Garbage cans toppled, and an explosion of light erupted from the shadows at the end of the alley. People screamed and stumbled back. Alexander felt his heart race as he turned sharply toward the noise, eyes wide. Was it thunder? No, it was worse. From the darkness, an enormous mechanical figure staggered forward. Gleaming metal and harsh angles reflecting the storm's flashes. The crowd gasped in horror. It moved with terrifying agility, stepping over the debris like it was nothing. Eyes glowing red in the tempest. "Run!" a woman screamed, and chaos erupted. Everyone scrambled to escape. The sudden fear overwhelmed them, cries mingling with the storm's fury. "Lily!" the older girl yelled, grabbing Lily's wheelchair and ripping her away from the hold of the man. In that frantic, but the figure didn't stop. It continued progressing, its laser-like focus shifting straight toward them. Alexander's gut twisted. The urgency pulled him out of his own fear. He glanced at the woman, whose cries for her daughter rang stronger amid the chaos. "Stop!" he shouted, lunging toward the scene. But the woman grabbed his arm, her panic bubbling over. "You don't understand! They're not just taking her. They're trying to erase her." The fabric of the night shattered. Alexander's stomach sank. Erase her? His mind raced, reeling back at what that could mean. They weren't just after a girl. "What do you mean?" he gasped. But the answer was lost in the clamor. The mechanical creature lunged forward, and with inhuman speed, it pointed a long, slick arm towards Lily. The crowd gasped as the weapon whirred to life. A harsh hum slicing through the rain. In that split second, everything spiraled. The stark, clear identity of good versus evil crumbled. Relationships tangled. Truth blurred with lies. Alexander's heart sank as realization sunk its claws into him. Before he could react, Lily's expression transformed in one quick flicker. Recognition mingled with horrific understanding. "No! You can't take me back!" she screamed. It was the absolute fracture of innocence. In a flash, the man, now just a shadow of authority, twisted, voice dropping to an icy steel. "You are going to come with us, whether you like it or not." The air felt thick, stifling with questions and fear. The crowd, having witnessed the true weight of the moment, stood frozen in disbelief. Was this a rescue? Or something far more sinister? Suddenly, the older girl pulled the backpack away from her side, raising it high above her head. "This is bigger than you think," she shouted, and in a startling motion, she heaved it toward the towering figure. A brilliant flash erupted, and just like that, it shattered reality. Everything fell apart. The explosion of light swallowed the scene, transforming chaos into a white blaze. In that blinding moment, as everything crumbled around them, the last word Alexander heard was Lily's strangled cry, "No!" The world faded, leaving behind a chilling silence, thick with uncertainty. Everything changed, leaving no path forward clear. Just the heavy weight of the unknown. The world faded, leaving behind a chilling silence, thick with uncertainty. The explosion of light enveloped everything, a blinding wash that swallowed the storm's fury and filled the alley with an otherworldly glow. Bodies cringed, and then time halted. Lily's scream hung in the air, a desperate note that echoed long after the noise had vanished. The flash dimmed, casting everyone in ghostly shadows. Alexander blinked, heart racing, trying to focus in the aftermath. But all he could see was white, the light dancing in the back of his eyes. The crowd, a swirling mass, a long mirror's cylinder, gleaming in contrast to the alley's grimy edges, began to rise from the ground. It pulsated with a strange energy, a heartbeat of its own. And the girl with the fierce eyes, she stepped forward, reaching into her backpack, her expression fiery, but overshadowed by rising dread. "Get down!" she yelled, urgency bleeding into her tone. Without a second thought, she hurled something towards the mechanical beast. But this time it wasn't just a random object. She pulled out a small orb, swirling colours trapped within. It glimmered like a trapped galaxy, radiant and mesmerising, holding something. Power? Hope? It seemed alive, and as it flew through the air, the world held its breath. Then an enormous crack tore through the air. The orb hit the towering figure, erupting the night with a blinding flash that sent ripples through reality. Silhouetted against the brilliance, everyone instinctively flinched. When the light brightened, shadows danced away, revealing a transformation. The mechanical monster didn't break. It didn't disintegrate. It leaned back, its structure shuddering. Then, impossibly, it began to glow. First green, then blue, then white hot, all the colours of hope, coalescing into a shimmering form. And when the brightness subsided, what remained was astonishing. A figure stepping from the machine, flesh and bone where metal had been. Lily gasped, eyes widening in shock. "What?" she stammered, her small hands trembling. It was a child, a boy, maybe 8, with deep-set eyes and messy hair. He looked around, bewildered, just like everybody else. Confusion marked his features. Muffled murmurs cascaded through the crowd, viewpoints shifting. What is happening? Who is he? Is this some kind of trick? And then the girl holding the backpack fell to her knees, her expression cracking wide open. No, this can't be, she whispered, voice shaking. Lena, the boy cried out, recognizing her as he stepped nearer. Time held its breath again, but this moment felt heavier, thicker, with secrets. The old woman still clutched Lily, frantically pushing back through the chaos. I told you, they're using her. They want her for the same reason they took him. Her words burst forth, pouring out, desperate for understanding. Alexander felt the ground beneath him shift once more, his footing faltering. The boy's presence snagged at his heart. The pieces of the puzzle he hadn't known he was wrestling with began to flare with fierce clarity. The fear, the urgency, they were tangled deeper than he had ever realized. But then chaos struck like lightning, splitting the night. The boy locked eyes with Lily. I'm here to rescue you, he said, voice confident, but so soft it cut through the tension. The crowd tensed, excited whispers swirling like a storm. Lily shrilled in disbelief. Rescue? From what? You were taken too! Her words hung, raw and powerful. Shockwaves rippled through the crowd, disbelief and horror twisting their features. What was the truth? What had they all been a part of? And more importantly, who did the boy represent? As the rain pelted down, an understanding settled in like a thick fog. There was more to Lily than they knew, more to their destinies intertwined. The boy stepped closer, raising a hand. Lily, you're special. You need to come with me, right now. With that, everything fell apart again. Alexander's heart raced, the world spiraling once more into chaos. Love and fear colliding. The real battle was just beginning. Would they escape the secrets that threatened to tear them apart? Or would the past catch up with them, shattering their connections forever? In that moment, as uncertainty loomed thick, the power of the boy's plea cut through the storm, leaving everyone breathless, teetering on the edge of discovery. What would happen next? Lily stood frozen, her wide eyes fixated on the boy. The chaos surrounding them faded into a blur as his words wrapped around her. I'm here to rescue you, right now. The crowd hummed with restless energy, a mix of fear and curiosity painting their faces. But then the ground beneath them vibrated again, not from the storm overhead, but something beneath. The machine began to whir and hum. Metal creaked as if alive, and all eyes shifted just in time to see the figure of the boy flicker for a brief second, almost like a glitch. Lily gasped. Wait, what are you? Suddenly a jarring blast filled the air, and everyone was thrown back. The explosion blasted back the shadows, illuminating figures that had been lurking, hidden from view. Alexander's heart raced. A group of men in dark coats stepped forward, faces hidden under hoods. They moved with cold precision, Step back! One of them shouted, voice sharp as glass. The crowd recoiled, hands covering heads and faces, fear bubbling like a boiling pot. But as the glowing figure of the boy raised his hands, a wall of energy erupted around him, pushing back against the newcomers. "No! Stop! You can't take her!" he cried out, desperation threading his voice. Then, as if on cue, a blinding light shot out from the boy's hands, arcing through the air like a comet. It collided with the ground and exploded into colours, splashing vivid hues over the alley. But just as the darkness seemed to retreat, something even more shocking erupted. From the centre of the explosion, a woman stepped into view, her long, dark hair whipping wildly around her. She wore a familiar coat, one that many had seen before, a soft, worn fabric that had once belonged to Lily's mother. "Lilla!" the older girl gasped, her voice trembling. The woman turned, her gaze piercing through the chaos. "You shouldn't be here," she said, and as her eyes locked onto Lily's, something shifted. "You don't know what's at stake." "Who are you?" Alexander breathed, a chill running down his spine. "What do you mean?" "I am your mother, Lily." The word struck like a hammer, driving deep. The crowd fell silent, disbelief washing over every face. Lily's heart stopped, her breath hitching painfully. "No, no!" She shook her head, disbelief pushing tears from her eyes. "You left! You!" "We thought we could protect you." The woman's voice was steady, but there was an edge of desperation. "They want you because you have something they need. You're not safe with them. You have to trust me." Lily looked between the woman and the boy, her heart a battlefield of emotions. "No, you can't mean I'm special like him. I just want to help." But the confusion deepened, twisting deeper. Lightning crashed above, the ground rumbling once more as the dark figures shifted, sensing a crack in their hold on the chaos. The boy cried out, "No, Lily! They're lying! You've been manipulated your whole life!" As the crowd shook with whispers, wrapped in disbelief. "Is that really her? What does she mean, manipulated?" But before anyone could process what was happening, the mechanical figure, now a wounded thing of metal and light, began to spark and shudder. In one violent motion, the figure exploded into shards of metal, cascading through the air like deadly rain. Alexander lunged forward, reaching for Lily, trying to shield her, while terror washed over them. But he couldn't save them from the heart of the storm. "What have you done?" the woman shouted, horror twisting her face. Before confusion could settle, another explosion roared from the depths of the alley, an echo that surged through their bones like an earthquake. Everything shifted. The boy vanished in a burst of blinding light, leaving a void behind, suffocating and heavy. And there, among remnants of chaos, one last sound rang clear, the crack of truth. "Lily," the woman whispered, a broken promise in her eyes. "It's time to choose." And in that moment, under a sky split, secrets wove tightly around them, binding them in ways they couldn't yet understand. Hearts raced, minds reeled, and as the remnants of light faded, uncertainty hung thick in the air. What had they all walked into? And who would emerge from it unchanged? Lily didn't know what to feel. Her world spun, and the words, "I am your mother," echoed in her mind. Everything around her moved in a blur. The rain fell faster, as if the sky itself couldn't contain the weight of the moment. She searched her heart for a shred of understanding, but it was tangled up with confusion and fear. "Mom?" she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "You left. Why?" But the answer never came. The woman's face twisted in agony. "I had to protect you." "They're coming for you!" The boy with glowing eyes stood frozen, his hand dropping limply in front of him, uncertainty clouding his expression. The figure he'd raised seemed to dim with the question hanging in the air. From the edge of the crowd, whispers erupted. "Is she really her mother? What's happening?" Faces twisted with uncertainty, eyes darting between the two women, the woman they thought was just a frantic figure, and the trembling girl they had grown to care for. Everything swirled around them, but something in the center felt even darker. The shadows moved, coiling like smoke, and Alexander realized the dark figures were closing in, drawn by the energy of the moment. He felt the urgency rise in his chest. "We need to move!" The ground shook beneath them, and Lily recoiled as a blast of energy surged toward them, warping reality. The figures in dark coats advanced, their intent clear and menacing. "Get out of the alley!" someone screamed, pushing through the crowd. Panic swept like a wave, pulling everyone this way and that. But then, from the chaotic center, the boy channeled a burst of light that sliced through the gathering shadows. It wasn't enough. The darkness absorbed the glow, smothering it like a blanket. The boy stumbled back, panic sparking in his eyes. "Lily, I'm sorry. Please." And just like that, a deafening roar erupted from the shadows. It felt like an earthquake, shaking their very cores. In that moment, everything changed. With a crash, the earth ripped apart, like a tear in the fabric of reality itself. A portal opened, dark and chaotic, drawing in light, sound, and even people. It shimmered, a swirling vortex of color and shadow, sucking everything into its depths. "Lily!" the woman screamed, reaching out, desperation painting her features. "Don't move! It's a trap!" But it was too late. The boy stepped forward, trying to shield her, but his hand snagged on something in the air. He jerked back suddenly, shock flaring in his eyes. "Wait! No! You can't go!" Lily felt the pull of the darkness, dragging her closer to the portal's edge. Her heart hammered in her chest, mind racing. What was happening? Her mother, the boy, everything was unraveling. The crowd screamed, the shadows lunged, and everything became chaos. Then, amidst the whirl of sound, a truth was uttered that shattered her reality. A voice, calm and chilling, cut through the chaos. She is not who she thinks she is. Every face turned to look. The words reverberated through them. The crowd froze. "What?" The whispers turned to gasps. Confusion flooding the alley. "You have no idea what you are, Lily." The woman's eyes flickered with anger and desperation. "You're not my daughter. You were never my daughter." As those words crashed over her like thunder, Lily's head spun. All she'd fought for, her life, her dreams, threatened to fall apart. She felt adrift in a sea of panic. And just like that, 1,000 questions burned through her thoughts. Who was she? What was she truly meant to be? The darkness wrapped around her tighter. Voices in the crowd merging into a chaotic cacophony. Everyone was reeling. Alexander's heart clenched as he wrestled with disbelief. They were faced with a new reality, one that twisted everything they thought they understood. And then, just as suddenly, the ground shook again, more violently this time, as the portal yawned wider, threatening to consume them all. The tension thickened, and as the shadows closed in on Lily, she realized there was no easy way out. Everything hung in the balance, the truth hovering just out of reach. What had she been brought into? And more importantly, who was she truly meant to be? Lily didn't know what to feel. Her world spun, and the words, "I am your mother," echoed in her mind. Everything around her moved in a blur. The rain fell faster, as if the sky itself couldn't contain the weight of the moment. She searched her heart for a shred of understanding, but it was tangled up with confusion and fear. "Mom," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "You left. Why?" But the answer never came. The woman's face twisted in agony. "I had to protect you. They're coming for you." The boy with glowing eyes stood frozen, his hand dropping limply in front of him, uncertainty clouding his expression. The figure he'd raised seemed to dim with the question hanging in the air. From the edge of the crowd, whispers erupted. "Is she really her mother? What's happening?" Faces twisted with uncertainty. Eyes darting between the two women. The woman they thought was just a frantic figure, and the trembling girl they had grown to care for. Everything swirled around them. But something in the center felt even darker. The shadows moved, coiling like smoke, and Alexander realized the dark figures were closing in, drawn by the energy of the moment. He felt the urgency rise in his chest. "We to move!" The ground shook beneath them, and Lily recoiled as a blast of energy surged toward them, warping reality. The figures in dark coats advanced, their intent clear and menacing. "Get out of the alley!" someone screamed, pushing through the crowd. Panic swept like a wave, pulling everyone this way and that. But then, from the chaotic center, the boy channeled a burst of light that sliced through the gathering shadows. It wasn't enough. The darkness absorbed the glow, smothering it like a blanket. The boy stumbled back, panic sparking in his eyes. "Lily, I'm sorry, please!" And just like that, a deafening roar erupted from the shadows. It felt like an earthquake, shaking their very cores. In that moment, everything changed. With a crash, the earth ripped apart, like a tear in the fabric of reality itself. A portal opened, dark and chaotic, drawing in light, sound, and even people. It shimmered, a swirling vortex of color and shadow, sucking everything into its depths. "Lily!" the woman screamed, reaching out, desperation painting her features. "Don't move! It's a trap!" But it was too late. The boy stepped forward, trying to shield her, but his hand snagged on something in the air. He jerked back suddenly, shock flaring in his eyes. "Wait! No! You can't go," Lily felt the pull of the darkness dragging her closer to the portal's edge. Her heart hammered in her chest, mind racing. What was happening? Her mother, the boy, everything was unraveling. The crowd screamed, the shadows lunged, and everything became chaos. Then, amidst the whirl of sound, a truth was uttered that shattered her reality. A voice, calm and chilling, cut through the chaos. She is not who she thinks she is. Every face turned to look. The words reverberated through them. The crowd froze. What? The whispers turned to gasps, confusion flooding the alley. You have no idea what you are, Lily. The woman's eyes flickered with anger and desperation. You're not my daughter. You were never my daughter. As those words crashed over her like thunder, Lily's head spun. All she'd fought for, her life, her dreams, threatened to fall apart. She felt adrift in a sea of panic. And just like that, 1,000 questions burned through her thoughts. Who was she? What was she truly meant to be? The darkness wrapped around her tighter, voices in the crowd merging into a chaotic cacophony. Everyone was reeling. Alexander's heart clenched as he wrestled with disbelief. They were faced with a new reality, one that twisted everything they thought they understood. And then, just as suddenly, the ground shook again, more violently this time, as the portal yawned wider, threatening to consume them all. The tension thickened, and as the shadows closed in on Lily, she realized there was no easy way out. Suddenly, a lightning bolt brighter than before, striking squarely at the heart of the swirling chaos. It cracked through the sky and slammed into the ground. A shockwave rippling with energy shot through the air. Everyone staggered as the power surged. And then the impossible happened. From the heart of the portal, a figure emerged, tall and commanding. The crowd gasped in unified awe and horror as a being stepped forward. Silver hair shimmering in the storm's light, eyes like liquid crystal. It was a woman, radiant but terrifying, cloaked in a mantle of stars. I am Eve, she announced. Haw. And you, Lily, are my daughter, but one I lost. Silence fell like a blanket. Every heartbeat felt amplified as the revelation crashed over them. Memories unfurled and secrets burst like bubbles in the rain. Lily stepped back, her heart pounding faster. But no, this can't. Yes, Eve said, and an ethereal glow surrounded her. You were meant to be a beacon of light, but fear took you from me. At that moment, everything fell apart. Lily's entire identity shattered. The very foundation of her existence trembled. What do you want from me? She cried, panic clawing at the edges of her sanity. Your power is greater than you know. You must reclaim it. Eve reached out, holding a hand as if to pull her closer. But as Lily hesitated, the darkness from the portal surged again, like a hungry beast. The figures in the alley, her supposed allies and enemies, stood paralyzed, caught in a web of overwhelming truths unraveling around them. Desperate and terrified, Lily turned to Alexander, eyes wide with fear. What am I supposed to do? One choice. One direction, all within reach, yet slipping away. The night thundered on, leaving only questions lingering in the air, like ghosts Who really were they now? What would become of them all? The future loomed heavy with uncertainty, each heartbeat echoing the urgency of decisions yet to be made. Lily didn't know what to feel. Her world spun and the words, "I am your mother," echoed in her mind. Everything around her moved in a blur. The rain fell faster, as if the sky itself couldn't contain the weight of the moment. She searched her heart for a shred of understanding, but it was tangled up with confusion and fear. "Mom?" she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "You left. Why?" But the answer never came. The woman's face twisted in agony. "I had to protect you! They're coming for you!" The boy with glowing eyes stood frozen, his hand dropping limply in front of him, uncertainty clouding his expression. The figure he'd raised seemed to dim with the question hanging in the air. From the edge of the crowd, whispers erupted. "Is she really her mother? What's happening?" Faces twisted with uncertainty, eyes darting between the two women. The woman they thought was just a frantic figure, and the trembling girl they had grown to care for. Everything swirled around them, but something in the center felt even darker. The shadows moved, coiling like smoke. And Alexander realized the dark figures were closing in, drawn by the energy of the moment. He felt the urgency rise in his chest. "We need to move!" The ground shook beneath them, and Lily recoiled as a blast of energy surged toward them, warping reality. The figures in dark coats advanced, their intent clear and menacing. "Get out of the alley!" someone screamed, pushing through the crowd. Panic swept like a wave, pulling everyone this way and that. But then, from the chaotic center, the boy channeled a burst of light that sliced through the gathering shadows. It wasn't enough. The darkness absorbed the glow, smothering it like a blanket. The boy stumbled back, panic sparking in his eyes. "Lily, I'm sorry! Please!" And then a deafening roar erupted from the shadows. It felt like an earthquake, shaking their very cores. In that moment, everything changed. With a crash, the earth ripped apart, like a tear in the fabric of reality itself. A portal opened, dark and chaotic, drawing in light, sound, and even people. It shimmered, a swirling vortex of color and shadow, sucking everything into its depths. "Lily!" the woman screamed, reaching out, desperation painting her features. "Don't move! It's a trap!" But it was too late. The boy stepped forward, trying to shield her, but his hand snagged on something in the air. He jerked back suddenly, shock flaring in his eyes. "Wait! No! You can't go!" Lily felt the pull of the darkness, dragging her closer to the portal's edge. Her heart hammered in her chest, mind racing. What was happening? Her mother? The boy? Everything was unraveling. The crowd screamed. The shadows lunged, and everything became chaos. Then, amidst the whirl of sound, a truth was uttered that shattered her reality. A voice, calm and chilling, cut through the chaos. She is not who she thinks she is. Every face turned to look. The words reverberated through them. The crowd froze. What? The whispers turned to gasps. Confusion flooding the alley. "You have no idea what you are, Lily." The woman's eyes flickered with anger and desperation. "You're not my daughter! You were never my daughter!" As those words crashed over her like thunder, Lily's head spun. All she'd fought for, her life, her dreams, threatened to fall apart. She felt adrift in a sea of panic. And then it happened. Without warning, the ground beneath them twisted and shifted. Cracks split open, revealing deep, pulsing darkness that swallowed sounds. The furious rain muted as if in awe of the moment. The dark figures stiffened, expressions of shock contorting their features. "Lily!" the boy shouted, voice edged with fear. "Get back!" And then, with a blinding flash, a whirl of colours burst forth from the portal. It was neither man nor woman, but something altogether different. It pointed a long, bony finger toward the boy, the same one who claimed he was here to help. "You!" The voice boomed like thunder, echoing from the depths of the portal. "You dare defy me?" The boy's face paled, and for a moment he looked like a scared child instead of the brave guardian he'd tried to be. "No, I was just trying to save her." "What a lie!" the figure roared, and the very air vibrated with an awful power. Lily felt it deep in her bones, like ice creeping through her veins. And then the shocking twist hit. "I am your father, and you will come with me, whether you like it or not." Every eye widened. Every mouth fell agape. The crowd gasped, whispers tearing through them like wildfire. Was this a game? Was everything she knew a lie? Lily's heart raced, and she staggered back. Everything felt like a dream collapsing in on itself. "What? No, you can't be." She shook her head, disbelief painted across her face. "You're lying." But as the figure stepped closer, the shadows pulled back to reveal a face, one she recognized, hauntingly familiar. It was a reflection of her own. Layers of identity, of love and truth began to rip away. Everything she thought she knew shattered, scattering like grass. The storm didn't just rage outside, it swelled within her. And in that moment of unbearable realization, a new question shot through the chaos. Who was one supposed to trust when the truth was built on so many lies? The air felt electric with tension, and all they could do was stand frozen, waiting for the next move of fate. Lily stood frozen, her heart pounding as she tried to process everything spiraling around her. Rain poured down, blending with her tears. The figure before her, no, the truth before her, felt like a crushing weight. "You're lying!" she shouted, desperation rising in her throat. "You've been gone my whole life. How can you be my father?" Eve's ethereal figure shimmered, her voice steady despite the chaos. "You were born of power, something they all want. You never belonged to those shadowy figures. They've twisted the story to keep you afraid, to use you for their own ends." Her eyes burned with urgency. "You must choose, Lily. Step into your destiny, or they will take you." The ground continued to tremble. The dark figures edged closer, their eyes glinting with greed. In that moment, everything converged. The shadows, the storm, it all coiled around her, squeezing tightly. Lily's heart raced, confusion and fear swirling in her mind. "You're not my family. she cried again, her voice cracking. Yes, but you must learn the truth, her father insisted, taking a step forward, prompting a dozen gasps from the crowd, each breath a desperate struggle against the rising tide of darkness. The boy beside her reached out. Lily, don't believe them. They want to manipulate you. You're stronger than them. He was the one who'd been brave throughout all this chaos, the one who had promised to protect her. Suddenly, sirens blared in the distance, cutting through the atmospheric tension like a knife. In that instant, the crowd erupted into chaos. Panic spread like wildfire as people scrambled, desperate to escape the impending doom. Alexander moved forward, his expression determined, grounding her. Lily, you have to decide. Whatever happens next, we're with you. The pulsating shadows crackled and surged again, threatening to swallow them whole. It was now or never. Heart pounding in her chest, she looked from Eve to the boy, and finally to Alexander. Choose love, not fear, Eve's voice echoed. In a flash of inspiration, Lily grasped onto her own instincts. I will not be a pawn, she screamed, a newfound strength igniting within her. As if responding to her resolve, a radiant light erupted from within her, brighter than the storm that raged above. The shadows recoiled, shrieking, as she summoned her courage. I will reclaim my life, she shouted, and in that moment, she felt the energy surge through her veins, connecting her with the world around her. The portal behind her flickered ominously, reflecting her tumult of emotions. A path to darkness, or a path to freedom. In one swift motion, she unleashed that power, creating a barrier of light that pushed back against the advancing figures. The darkness struggled, but the light surged forward, illuminating the alley, pushing away fear and doubt. Eve blinked, and for a moment, emotion flickered in her eyes. Hope, perhaps, or pride. Yes, my daughter! Now we can face this together! But just as victory seemed within reach, the boy shouted, Lily, look out! A dark figure lunged, reaching for her, but with a determined flick of her wrist, her light turned into a protective shield, repelling the shadows back into the void of the portal. With one final push, Lily sent a wave of brilliance that consumed the shadows, sending them screaming back into the darkness. The alley was alive with light, the storm dispersing. The cries of fear faded, leaving only the sound of rain tapping against the pavement, a soft rhythm returning to the world. As the dust settled, the crowd stood in awe, eyes wide, hearts racing. Lily turned to Alexander, the boy, and Eve. What now? She whispered, the enormity of what just happened crashing down. Now, Eve said gently, we find out who you are meant to be. Together. Always together. As hope spread like dawn breaking over the horizon, there was a warmth wrapping around them, an embrace of new beginnings, yet uncertainties lin. What awaited them on this uncharted path? But there was a flicker in the air, and as everyone turned to the remnants of darkness, a question hung palpably in the atmosphere. Had they truly won? Or would this be just the beginning of their adventure together? Midst the fading storm and hopeful questions, a new dawn awaited. And before we part ways, here's something vital. If you want to uncover what happens next, you need to subscribe to the channel right now. Don't miss out on exclusive, pulse-pounding stories coming your way. Smash that like button. Your support fuels this journey. Flood the comments with your reactions and wild theories about this ending. What's your take on Lily's journey? And for real, share this with at least 5 friends who need to dive into this epic tale. This is your moment to show support. Let's make it count.